Hello, I'm Kathy Agard, Project Director for the K-12 Education and Philanthropy Project of the Council of Michigan Foundations. Today we have an opportunity to talk with the filmmaker of the film that you just viewed, Greg Sears. Greg, welcome. I'm glad you could be with us today.
Glad I could be here.
Yeah, can you tell me a little bit about why you made this film?
Well, I moved to New York about 2 years ago, and I had lived in Michigan for close to 21 years. And I had a chance to make my big film for my graduation requirement. And what I decided to do after reading this article from the Detroit News, actually, about a young boy who, you know, hypothetically, if you put up a lemonade stand, why would everybody drive by nowadays? That one sentence made me think about the fact that that's very much true in that part of the country. People don't have the small town, you know, closeness that they do in the Midwest and in Michigan. And so I really wanted the chance to try and express that kind of dichotomy between what they have out there and what they had, you know, back in my home. And so I figured, how can I merge the two and give something that's entertaining at the same time and send a message? And this seemed like the best idea that I had was, you know, what's more small town meets metropolis than a lemonade stand in the middle of Times Square? And that's pretty much how it got started.
When you think about it, what would you say is the central message that you want people viewing your film to get from it?
Basically, doing a good thing for somebody else is a really hard thing to do, especially when you're growing up, because it is so easy to fall into the trap of doing what's best for yourself. And so what I wanted to do was try and capture that one moment where, without feeling any sort of thanks or gratitude or recognition for what you did, you feel good because you did something that was totally selfless and totally not having to do with your personal goal. And that's why the movie kind of shifts from what he wants to do to what kind of just seemed right at the time. And who knows if, you know, in the end that was the right thing, you know, in the long run. But at that one moment, which is what the film is about, is that one moment where he realizes that.
Tell me a little bit about the, going back to the film itself, about the family setting. And this is a child who's in a setting that isn't perfect. Tell me why you chose that setting and a little bit about the family dynamics.
Well, the movie begins and ends with a shot of a street on in a suburban area in New Jersey. And it could be anywhere, though. That's why I chose the shot. It's a very bland sort of thing that zooms into the house and into the front door where the family would go in and out supposedly every day. And then at the very end, it comes out of that shot. And I want, subliminally, the entire movie to take place inside the home, okay? And more, you know, more importantly, inside of the child's mind. When you get right down to it, everything that we've got begins and ends with our families. And if the training isn't there and the tools aren't given to you at an early enough age to do good things for each other, where are you going to get them from? It's a good chance that they won't show up. So that's why that was there. The negative aspects of the family, I wanted to kind of embody in the father figure, and I needed some sort of adversary, you know, to what the boy's goal was. And this, I needed some sort of contrast too, because he's this little cute kid, and then I've got this big behemoth of a man, and you know, the fact that they're butting heads all the time, going right down to what they're eating for breakfast.
I had talked with you a bit about your own experiences with philanthropy, and I'm wondering if you might talk with young people a little bit about your own growing up and your experiences with the Hugh O'Brien Foundation and some of the things that you've had as experiences in your life.
Growing up, I was the bookworm. I was the kid with the glasses that didn't fit his head quite right, and I got really lucky when I was a sophomore in high school. This was in 1992. I got to do this essay contest that was a required paper in my English class. And I had to answer 4 questions about how I help people with their homework and how it felt to do good things for other people. And in this essay, I just wrote about how it was so much fun to be able to express love towards other people, because you truly make this connection that you don't make in, you know, every other aspect of your life. And so I won this essay contest. I got to go to this leadership camp for a couple days, and this was with the Hugh O'Brien Youth Foundation out of Michigan. And at the time, it was a much bigger operation than it is now. But I went to the program, and I heard somebody speak about the fact that, you know, do we really know how long we've got? Do we really know that everything's guaranteed in our life, and that, yeah, we're going to go to college after we graduate from high school, and we have all this promise of a great career? but how do we really know that we have all this time, you know? And don't want to be a predestinationalist, you know, and say that, well, we're all going to die tomorrow. But that's something that I never heard before, and I thought about all the things that I could have done to make today much more special, and one of them involved this philanthropy. So after going to this and hearing this man speak, I went back every year, and I volunteered as a counselor and a junior counselor, and I got to work with these people who are all in my shoes, you know, and in the past years, and it's been a great experience. Moving to New York, I had to stop doing that, but I've still kept in close touch with a lot of the people and plan to maintain some sort of involvement in that organization.
Tell us about your homeless character.
Well, the actors, the only one who was actually an actor in the movie was a little boy. Everybody else was either a friend of mine or a colleague from NYU. And the actor who plays the homeless man, or the man, is from Michigan. And I actually flew him to New York to do this part. And kind of an intertextual thing here is that the man who told me that line at that conference about no guarantees in our life is that guy.
Oh, wonderful.
And that was one of the reasons I made the movie, and one of the reasons I asked him was because of that. So yeah, his name's Jim Tooman, and he's from Royal Oak, Michigan. And no, he's not really homeless.
How did you develop the film? Talk a little bit about the creative process. You read the article in the paper, and what happened after that?
That was during the summer that I read the article, and I knew that I had to write this script in the fall. I then joined the class. We were given a crew of 4 people, and we each had to do our mammoth project, and we all worked for each other for free, and each of us had to finance our own film. I wrote about 9 drafts of the script. Initially, there were more characters, and there was more of a movement around in the city. And he came in contact with more of a concrete resistance to his good deed doing that he was trying to do.
Tell me a little bit about the changes that happened as you worked on the film. You made some changes as you developed it. You had to cut and recut. Tell me a little bit about the mechanics of how this film operates.
Well, basically, something that people don't realize is even while we're filming this interview, we've got 3 different cameras rolling at the same time. And even though all 3 of those are rolling, you only see one of them at the same time. The same type of thing works when you're shooting a movie. You figure out how you want it to work, and if you watch the movie closely, you'll notice that the path that the boy walks is a very straightforward path, and it has some spirals in it, and it's like a little maze that he's got to go through. And when he's home, the path is much more befuddled and kind of twisty-turny on itself, whereas when he's in the street, it's a very direct path. The same type of thing happens with your editing and all this. You have all these different angles and ways that you can go with it, as far as walking direction or speaking direction, anything like that. And you have to just find a way to fit it all together so that it forms a unit that's always moving forward.
And you do that cutting? I mean, how did you?
Yep. You're in a room, you're on a table with a lot of little gears, and it's called a Steenbeck. And you've got a little screen that shows this very bad image. It's very dirty and dark. And basically you go in at school 6 to 9 hours at a time, as long as you want, and you cut it with your fingers. You tape it together with some clear plastic tape that has sprocket holes on it to fit it onto the film. And I spent probably 300 hours working on this movie between November and now. And that's just in an editing room by myself in this smelly little room trying to cut it.
So it's hard work. It's not all glamorous making this kind of a movie.
Every footstep you have to lay down, every car driving by you put it in, every thunderclap.
What about the music? Tell us a little bit about how you did that and where you went for the music and what you were trying to do with the musical support to the movie.
Yeah, the guy who plays the father, Jeff Smith, actually is a composer, and he is from Wisconsin initially, and he and I were talking about it, and I thought, what a great opportunity to collaborate with him once he already knows a lot about the film, and give it his own flavor, And so I gave him the movie. I said, this is basically what I want. I gave him what's called a temp track, which is some commercial music that I laid in, and showed him that I wanted something similar in feel. And he came up with this score that was very different from what I had envisioned it would be. I pictured it as much more dramatic, and he gave it this light little fluffy flavor at times, and then at other times it was very melodramatic. But I think it works, and it's very sweeping, and I was very impressed.
Home is Where is located at?
Home in Michigan is in Mount Pleasant.
Yeah, good.
And it's nothing like the home in the movie.
Yeah. You make this very
supportive
clear,
bunch of
right?
parents. No,
Yes.
your father's not based on
Yeah,
my father or anything
right.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, it's, again, it's a story.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not a true story. But it was, I thought, as true as it could be,
Mm-hmm.
given the circumstances.
You're drawing from some of your own experience,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
And then what, fictionalizing from there?
Right.
Would you suggest that to young writers if you were, you know, again, a sophomore in high school? What would you do in terms of developing your writing skills?
Now, over and over again, you hear write what you know, and that's good advice for anybody. I guess that for me, you know, I grew up and I kind of started acting when I was really young, and started doing a lot of shooting too on camera. I had a tendency as a child to over-dramatize a lot of the stuff that was going on, and but from that you reach these certain conclusions about truths and what's happening in an environment, and taking that, and that's how I started this film, and that's how I'm going to start my next one.
How long did it take for you to make the movie, and how much did it cost?
It took me 3 days for initial photography. I did one pickup day in March, and it took, well, November to July, that's 6, 7, 8, it's about 8 months to finish, which is pretty quick. Most students take a year or two because of the money situation. The film cost around $9,000 to finish. It ran 11 minutes and 2 seconds, and the cost for a general film, whether it be a short or a feature, per minute is usually, when it's all said and done, $1,000 a minute, if not more, if you've got digital compositing and stuff like that. So we came in under budget. In all regards, it should have cost $1,100 or $11,000.
One of the things I've always been interested in is the visual, sort of being visually literate, and understanding what you're seeing when you see a film, that you're not, that it has 3 cameras, not 1 camera, for example. Are there things about filmmaking that were a surprise to you, that when you saw that, you know, what you could do with a film, or things that you want to make sure that young people would know?
Yeah, I mean, a big push by my family was to make nice movies, such as the one that you're watching now. And when I started, I was doing some really avant-garde type stuff. And I was toying with a lot of different notions. There's a man named Eisenstein, Sergei Eisenstein, who made a really famous movie back in the 20s called Battleship Potemkin. And a little sentence that he wrote in a book about the fact that in between the pictures is where the story is. And in between, say, a shot of that house zooming into the door and a shot of the kid eating breakfast, you've got a thought. Okay, and when someone watches this and they see that spot in between, that split second where it changes, your brain has to change with it, and it has to make a connection, and it has to be the glue for the story. And I guess the hardest thing is in learning, and that I'm still trying to figure out, and that people who are 60 years old still don't have it mastered, is how do you join thoughts that you can't predict, you know, where they're going to be together, and keep people's interest at the same time. And that's pretty much the key between those two spaces, between those two pictures.
Oh, that's great advice. So,
Yeah.
so when you're watching a film, you might want to look for those transition points and say, what does the artist want to have happen here? Yeah,
right.
well, that's great.
Right.
Good. Thanks. We're delighted to have you with us, to have you have a chance to express your views and your understanding of the film. We're delighted to have it as a resource to the K-12 Philanthropy Project, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you.